Welcome to Living English at the Houston Public Library, a 25-lesson language learning program that focuses on how you work, play, and interact with others in your everyday life. Hello, my name is Ryan Bowden from the Houston Public Library. Welcome to Living English at HPL. Today, we're going to be talking about cooking and baking. So whether you're cooking something up in a pan or baking something in the oven, this is going to be the lesson for you. Let's jump right into some vocabulary. So different types of cooking. This is just a few of the ways that we can cook our food. So one is to bake it, which is to cook it in the oven, like that cake up in the corner over there. So we can bake something in the oven. Or you might be a fan of grilling. So we like to grill things over a direct flame. So we have some sausages here on the grill, which is a lot of fun. Or you might like to fry things. I enjoy all kinds of fried food. It's delicious. So we cook it in oil or fat, right? So frying something, when we cook it in oil or fat. And then finally, to saute, which is to cook directly on the heat of the pan, right? Maybe just a little bit of oil, but a little different than frying. To saute, so some sauteed vegetables. Awesome. So if we're preparing our meal, if we're preparing our ingredients before we cook, we may have to cut some things up, all right? So we might have to chop something. To chop is to cut into chunks, right? So cut it into larger pieces. So you can see those are pretty big pieces of carrot right there. That is a chopped carrot. Or you might slice the carrot, right? So you might slice it, well, it's a cucumber right here being sliced, but you're gonna slice it into thin pieces. Or you might dice it, which is to finely chop it into little pieces. That would be dicing. And you're probably gonna do all this cutting on a cutting board, right? So that's a cutting board and a knife, right? Another cutting board right up here. Okay. Now we may have to mix ingredients together, combine the ingredients into one thing. So you might do this by stirring. To stir is an action, right? To stir the ingredients in a bowl, or to stir the pot if you're making soup, right? You can see the spoon right there is going in a circular motion. That is stirring, right? And you're gonna do that in a bowl, right? So we have a bowl over there. We also have a bowl right here for mixing. Very good. And you may have to add some of your ingredients and measure them out first. So if you want a specific amount, use a measuring cup or a measuring spoon. You need a cup or a half a cup or a teaspoon or a tablespoon of an ingredient. You want to measure those out. And then finally, we have whisk. Now, a whisk is a utensil. This is a whisk right here. But whisk is also a verb. To whisk something would be to use this utensil, right, to stir something up, right? That would be to whisk. So remember, whisk can be a noun or a verb in this case. Whisk. All right, some appliances. We talked about this last week in housing, furniture, and appliances, so I won't spend too much time on it. But over here we have an oven and a stove, right? The oven underneath there, and the stove top where the burners are up on top there, right? So an oven and a stove. We also have a refrigerator where we can keep things cold, and we have some mixers over here. If you don't want to mix by hand, you can use an automatic mixer. This is a hand mixer right here that you hold and you can mix, or a fancy bowl mixer right there. So these might be very helpful in the kitchen if you're cooking. Okay, so if you are cooking, you might be following a recipe, and that is just the directions for how you're going to cook something, right? The recipe is the directions, and you follow the directions, you follow the recipe because you want your food to taste a certain way. Maybe you want it to be more sweet, or maybe it's supposed to be salty or bitter or spicy, right? So you follow the recipe because you want a specific taste. Now, the recipe also might tell you how long to cook something for, right? So you might need a timer. So the timer, obviously we could cook something for 10 minutes or 15 minutes so we don't forget. I usually just use the timer on my phone, but you may have an old timer like this right here. The recipe also might tell you the temperature. So what temperature to cook your food at? So in the oven, should it be 350 degrees or 400? Or maybe if you're grilling, how hot should your meat be when you are done grilling it, right? What temperature should the meat be? So we're taking the temperature right there. And then finally, the recipe might tell you what spices to use, right? Maybe some cayenne pepper or some lemongrass or some chipotle chili, all kinds of spices in there that will change the taste of your food. Awesome. Now, this is the worst part of cooking: cleaning up, washing the dishes after you're done, right? So if you've cooked in a pan, you may have to scrub the pan. Scrubbing is when you are washing something very hard, right? You rub it very hard in order to clean it. So we're scrubbing that pan to get it clean. And in order to scrub, you may want to use a sponge. Maybe a sponge like this has a scrubbing side on it, right? So to scrub is just to clean very hard, right? And then you may do all of this washing in your kitchen sink. It's an empty sink, so it looks like people already washed the dishes, right? But certainly you might do your cleaning in the sink. All right, now that that's done, let's move on to a little vocabulary practice. We have a couple pictures here, okay? Number one is going to correspond to that image right there, and number two will correspond to this image right here. You have a word bank. All right, there are 6 words. You'll use each word one time. Use each word one time. So I'll give you a second, pause the video, and see if you can fill in the blanks for this activity. Go ahead. All right, how'd we do? Well, for number 1, while the daughter is mixing the ingredients together in a bowl, her mother is reading the recipe, right? Reading those directions. She's reading off right there, and the daughter is adding all of those things to a bowl. I hope that turns out good for them, right? I hope it's delicious. And then over here, 3 words left. After spending the day cooking, John is scrubbing the pan with a sponge on the edge of the sink. All right, so he's scrubbing the pan with a sponge on the edge of the sink. So it looks like we are done with our cooking for the day. Time to clean up. All right, I hope you got those. If you didn't get one of them, go back, take a look at those terms again. We're gonna move on, and we're gonna talk about sequence. Now, we've done this in a previous video, but we're gonna be talking specifically about recipes today and how to follow directions in a recipe with sequence words, all right? So some of the sequence words, and I think we've seen these before, are first, right? First. To begin with, first of all, in addition, second, third, you can even say fourth or fifth if you wanted to, if you were making a numerical list. Then, next, after, later, before, and last or lastly. You could also say finally, I imagine, as well. There's a lot of these. I just gave you a small list so we can complete this today. So I have highlighted all of the sequence words in this paragraph, and we're going to go through it together. Yesterday, I decided to bake some cupcakes with my wife. First, we gathered all the ingredients. So over there on the side, you see that we gathered all of our ingredients to make our cupcakes. Second, we preheated the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see right there the oven is set to 350 degrees. We're getting that ready to go. Then we mixed all the ingredients together in a bowl. So look at that, stirring up the ingredients in a bowl. Next, we poured the batter into a cupcake pan, right there, pouring in the batter, before putting it into the oven and letting it bake for 20 minutes. Look at that guy, oven light is on, we're cooking our cupcakes. After that, we let them cool before adding some frosting, right? Adding the frosting to the cupcakes right there, and eating them. Maybe I could have said finally eating them. So you probably shouldn't eat a cupcake like that, but certainly that's the sequence. Gather the ingredients, preheat the oven, mix the ingredients, pour the batter in the cupcake tin, cook them, add the frosting, and then eat, right? So we've added all these sequence words to make it flow, all right? So now you're going to practice. This is a real recipe for some sugar cookies. Very delicious. So for each step, I would like you to put the different things in order. So for step 1, we have to do something first, second, and then after that, there's something else. Same thing for step 2 and 3. I'm gonna have you read through this and then try to fill in the blanks here. What are we doing first, second, and after? Next, then, after, and last, and then next and finally. Go ahead and pause the video. This is a tough one. And see if you can fill these in. Okay, here we go. So for step 1, the first thing is to preheat the oven to 375 degrees, right? Preheat oven, 375. Second, we stir together the flour, baking soda, and baking powder in a small bowl, right? That's one thing that we're doing. And then after that, we set it aside, right? So you set it aside and you move on to step 2. For step 2, in a large bowl, cream together the butter and sugar until smooth. This just means to mix together the butter and sugar until it's smooth, right? Then we're gonna beat in the egg and vanilla. After that, we're gonna gradually blend in the dry ingredients, okay? And then last for this step is to roll the rounded teaspoonful balls of dough and then place them onto ungreased cookie sheets. I'm sorry, I got tripped up there. But we're basically just taking the dough and we're gonna put it onto a cookie sheet so we can bake it. And then step 3, we're going to bake the cookies for 8 to 10 minutes in the preheated oven. And then finally, we're gonna let them stand on the cookie sheet, let them sit and cool on the cookie sheet before removing them, and then we can eat, I guess, right? After that, we'd be able to eat. So I hope you got this. Maybe you can go bake some cookies now. I think I might, though I don't think they'll come out very good. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you back here again soon.